What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to this R31 RB30 build where I still don't know what I'm going to do about my crank. So anyway, at the moment I'm going down to get another RB30 out because I need the front sump and pickup. So while I've got the sump off, I might have a quick look over the bearings and just sort of maybe gauge whether it's worth pulling another crank out of another motor and seeing if it's any better, and maybe go with a different crank. So we'll have a look, but that's what we're up to now at the moment. Alrighty guys, so here you can see RB DOS for this build. Obviously a few things I want to get off this. Firstly, I want these intake runners to put my forward facing cut and shut on top of, because we've got some down there in the shed, but they look like they've been cleaned up and painted real nice. I want to do what Liam did and pretty much go wrinkle black on my intake, so I figured I may as not waste the really nice set of runners. Secondly, got a coil here, need a coil, front timing cover, and these are water blanking bolts because I don't need to run water with the turbo I'm running, and also this little heater derby, and of course the front sump. I actually just had a thought just after getting it up here that I'm pretty sure because Luke put my old motor in a EH, he should still have my old front sump, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. For the sake of being sure, I will flog this sump off this motor so that it's ready to go. Also found my polished cover while I was down there, so that's awesome. That's the old cover off my motor, which will go on this one. So polished cover and probably just trying to wrinkle black everything else. Got my turbo here. So this is the old T3 T4 that came off Rex's Skyline before he went to the 3076. So as you can see, it's just a very baby turbo, little 0.63 rehousing T3. So yeah, baby. So that's pretty much gonna be the setup. So anyway, I'll start pulling down what I want off this motor. Alrighty, so upon pulling that sump off and having a look at this bottom end, I cannot feel any movement at all in any of these rods. All of these bearings feel really nice. So that being said, this is a motor that was purchased by Rex. He threw it in the car and it had like a ticky, knocky sound, and that's when he decided to just rebuild his other one. So he reckons when he put it in and ran it, it didn't particularly sound like a bottom end issue. So potentially this crank may be just perfect fine. So basically I'm going to go as far as pulling this motor down. It's a bit of work, but as we saw from pulling the other one down there, they're just getting full of water anyway, so I may as well pull it down. I haven't got much else to do today. Rex has sort of got customer stuff sorted out. So I'm going to go as far as pulling this engine down, and potentially I'll probably use this crank instead of that crank and just have a nicer surface on that thrust bearing surface, and hopefully get a bit more longevity out of the motor. So I was just taking out these little sort of locating bolts in the head when I noticed that down there is a washer in the head that is not supposed to be there. So that very well may have a lot to do with whatever the hell was ticking or knocking or what the go was there. So pull that out.
Yep, that's an M8
an M8 washer.
M8 washer.
It's certainly not meant to be in the head. So, as for where it's come from, who knows? It might have just got dropped in, or someone had the cover off, or something may have happened, but that's certainly not ideal. So, pulling this engine down, all the pistons look good. There's nothing obvious on top of the pistons. As you can see, it looks like we just got to this one just at the right time as well. Looks like water's just been sitting in it, but so you can see there where it's getting a little bit scaly, but all these bores are still savable, they're fine. A little bit more lip on this one than the other motor, obviously had a little bit more wear. The head also looks great. Literally nothing I can see wrong in the combustion chambers on the head. Gasket seems to have been sealed properly, everything was sealing. Looks like, again, all looks quite good. One thing I did notice though, is you can see how these pistons are actually dome topped. So this is actually protruding out of the piston, that's a dome top piston. These pistons that we pulled out of the other motor are not. These are flat tops, which are sort of cavitated. So you can see that they do not protrude at all from the flat top. So that sort of confirms that this motor is actually factory turbo motor. So they are, your dome top pistons are your high compression pistons for your naturally aspirated applications. And obviously the other pistons there, they're the low compression turbo pistons. So that sort of just confirms that that is an actual factory VL turbo engine, or at the very least has VL turbo pistons in it. So yeah, but anyway, so far this looks pretty good. I'll flip it back over and check over these bearings again and drop these rods and pistons out and have a look. Pretty bad news. Well, first good news is you can see how this O-ring on this motor after you pull the pickup off is complete. So yeah, like as you saw in the last motor when you pull it up, that had that gap in it, which is bad. But anyway, pulling the pistons and rods out, as you can see, literally every single piston, the bearings, literally the shells just fell out. You can see how undersized they are just from sitting in the rod caps. Yeah. All absolutely cooked, all absolutely cactus. They are all just not good at all. Every single one of them. Absolutely cooked. This motor's obviously been run really low oil pressure. It's been starved to oil and they've gotten real hot. And it's not looking very good for the crank. Obviously, when your bearings get that worn, they start to wear on the crank bearing surface. So you can see, potentially, probably hard because I've been rubbing my fingernail over it. But on this bearing surface, there's a few scores, which you can actually feel slightly when you rub your fingernail over it. That's not good for a bearing surface. It's really, really bad for a bearing surface, so. At this stage, it's either fucked crank or fucked crank. So yeah, that's a pain. Honestly, I think I'd rather have good bearing surfaces and too much end play than run a crank with the right end play and have fucked bearing surfaces, because that's going to wear out bearings a lot quicker than the end play, and that's going to wear out bearings, I believe. So that's where I'm at the moment, but I've gotten this far, so I may as well finish pulling it down. I still need to get the dipstick and the bung for the other dipstick location out for the other motor, but at this stage it is looking like probably just use that other crank, I'm thinking, because basically I'm going to have to lineage that if I want to get it right, which means I'm going to have to get different size bearings most likely, which is just a pain. But anyway, I'll have a think about it. Also, just confirming all you RB nuts out there, I've had a look. I compared these rods with the rods out of the factory turbo motor. So assuming that that is a factory turbo motor and not a motor that someone's just put factory turbo pistons in, the rods between the Series 2 NA motor and the RB dirty turbo factory motor are the same rods. Rods are the same, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. That's just in my experience. Obviously it's pretty hard these days because it's hard to get an engine that's this old that is still completely factory to pull down. Like I said, that other one had new bearings in it, so it could have been changed for all I know. It's not common, but could have been. But anyway, this is pretty much cooked. What do you do? It's a game you play when you buy second-hand motors. Righty, so the GoPro died last night before, well, as we did this, so I didn't get to show you how we did it, but these timing gears on these cranks are really stubborn and pain in the ass, and obviously because of the oil pump has this shield on it, you can't really get any teeth over it to pull it off properly. So obviously one option is to take the oil pump and the crank out together, and that way you can slide the oil pump back on the collar and sort of get some teeth in and actually pry it off properly on the bench. This is a less destructive way to do it. Generally, if you try and bash things in the back of it, you'll end up cracking oil pumps, which we've done before. We've learnt from that mistake. If you try and bash in stuff behind the pulley and try and pry it off, you really end up just cracking the oil pump housing. So this is a destructive way to get it off. Obviously, it's only destructive to the gear, saves your oil pump, saves your crank, which is the important thing. Generally, this gear will come in a new timing set anyway. So basically what you do is get a little drill bit, just above the keyway here. Usually the keyway will line up with one of the splines, so with about a 3 or 4 mil drill bit you can sort of line it up and drill a couple of holes. Right, that, drill the second hole. Hopefully now she should be right. Cracked it. So that's all you want to do is just try and get those holes, try and weaken it a bit, and then you just get your cold chisel in and crack it, and then it pretty much, after it's cracked and released a bit of tension, just pulls straight off. Obviously you got to clean the swarf out of the way, otherwise it'll jam. And then just with a little bit of a pull, they just come off. So you can see how it's the cold chisel in the holes, it's just cracked it and allowed it to just come off. So that's how you get them off without damaging everything else on there. Because like I said, that usually comes with a timing kit. It's a lot easier to replace that than it is to replace your crank, and a lot cheaper than replacing your oil pump. So basically findings are about the same. The main bearings are not too great. Definitely not as bad as the rod bearings were, but so the crank on the main journals is not too bad. Rod journals, you can feel a little bit of lip, but certainly can be saved, this crank. But obviously going off the fact that I need to machine it anyway, I think I will use the crank that came out of that motor. I don't think it's going to be too detrimental to what I'm doing. So anyway, that's motor number 2 pulled down. I've got the other stuff I needed off it is over there, so it wasn't a complete failure, but yeah, not going to use that crank or anything. I'm still tossing up whether to use the dome top NA pistons or whether to run the flat top boosted pistons. Basically, for what I plan on doing, my very mild 10 psi of boost, I don't need, I could probably use the extra comp, to be honest. It would probably be a bit better for me. So obviously, being not a very high boost application and always running very good fuel and having a good tune, I don't particularly need the low comp pistons, and honestly I reckon I'd benefit from having the high comp ones. So that's something to think about. I think I will pull down that third RB, just being the fact that both of these motors had a little bit of water sitting in them when I pulled them down that hadn't been there for very long. I just feel a lot more comfortable just pulling down that third one, because at least this way, obviously I squirt everything with oil and wrap it all up and seal it up, and I can put it back down there and know that it's pretty safe down there after that. But obviously having these engines just sitting down there on the top, it's not the best thing for them. So just for peace of mind, I think I will pull down that third one. But for now, I'm just going to wrap this up, tidy up, and see how I'm going for time, because we got to go tomorrow for the shutdown. So I'm not sure how much time I'll have, or whether I'll get time to do it this weekend. But it definitely is something that I would like to get onto quite soon. But anyway, as always, thank you for watching, guys, and I will see you soon. Peace.